Welcome to day 3. Your goal for today is to get the on and off state coded today, and I've got a whole bunch of different things to tell you about. Homework for later will be to finish all your shapes. So let's get started. Let's talk about simple interactivity. The way we're going to program this is we're going to have an if statement, and if statements look like this. If something is true, do some stuff, and then a lot of times there's what's called a Boolean variable in here. But the syntax of the code is going to look like this. If, then there's going to be parenthesis, and then there's going to be a beginning curly bracket and an ending curly bracket. That's all inside all of the other beginning and ending curly brackets. And you can have just an if statement. If something is true, do this code, like make these shapes. But then also you can add an else statement too. So sometimes there's an else, and you see there's a beginning and ending curly bracket for the if area, and then there's another beginning and ending curly bracket for the else area. So what you guys are going to have, we're going to use this P5JS term called mouseIsPressed, and you see that there's a capital I there and a capital P. This is sometimes called camel notation. So a lot of times in coding, when there's a bunch of words pressed together, because you're not going to have spaces, a lot of times they'll capitalize the subsequent words. Open up a new P5JS editor and let's get started. Let's draw our first if-then statement. I keep calling them if-then statements, but they're really if statements. Well, let's make an ellipse. Remember how to do that? 100, 100, 100, 100. Let's just always start. It's kind of like playing scales on the flute when you're practicing the flute or something like that. Okay, I know how to program. I'm good at this. Can you remember also how to make it a rectangle? It's kind of the same thing. Rectangles takes the same number of parameters. You can actually have more parameters too, but let's just do this for right now. So we've got a, oh, what happened? Oh, look at that. I made an error. This is kind of good for you guys to see though. Look how it says missing parenthesis after argument. That's wrong. But if I click on this and I can see, okay, it's sketch, it's at line 10 in the sketch. And can you tell what's wrong? It's this. I mistyped my comma. So now I have a rectangle at 100, 100, and I have an ellipse at 100, 100, 100, 100. One other thing. This is 100 comma 100 right now. I know that because the ellipse is there. Can you see how the rectangle got placed at its top left corner? That's 100 comma 100. So rectangles default to getting placed by their left corner. If I want that rectangle to be, if I want this to be, the center of it to be placed at 100 comma 100, I'm actually going to have to add what I call a mode command, rectMode center. So that's if I do that now, look at now it's on top of the circle. But you're going to see these a lot. Usually students have a really tough time with that code. So you're going to see it over and over again. I'm going to show it to you a lot. Rect mode center just means without it, see what happens. So it moved over here. So what rect mode center means, this is the space 100 comma 100 right here, but it's placing the rectangle there. And if I tell it to do center, it's gonna put this part at 100 comma 100. What I show students a lot of times is if you have rect mode center, or if you have a normal rectangle, like if I decide to place this at 0 comma 0, it'll be like this. It'll 0 comma 0 on your screen will be like that. But if I have rect mode center, it's going to take the center of this rectangle and place it at 0 comma 0. So you'll see it later on in as we're moving on with images. You're going to see images, like an image is going to be like this. Why is the image cut off? And it's going to be because we have image mode center. Back to mouse is pressed. So what I'm going to have is if the mouse is pressed, we're going to see an ellipse, and if the mouse isn't pressed, we're going to see rectangles. So this is what this is going to look like. If, and then parenthesis, mouse is pressed. It has to look like that. It's got to be capitalized like that. I clicked a left curly bracket and it helpfully gave me a right curly bracket, which is kind of a pain in the butt. So if mouse is pressed, then I want this code to happen. And I can have more lines of code in here too. But if it's not, else, I'm going to have, thanks guy, this happen. So if mouse is pressed, we'll have an ellipse. Otherwise, we're going to have a rectangle. Let's see if it works. Boom. If the mouse is pressed, I have the ellipse. If it's not, I have the rectangle. So you're going to code that, you're going to have a whole bunch of your avatar code. So if the mouse is pressed, you're going to have a whole bunch of shapes in here. And if it's not, you're going to have a whole bunch of shapes in here. This particular project is going to be a lot more tedious than it is going to be hard to code, I think. It's just tedious because you're going to have to figure out how to place shapes. In the next video, I'm going to show you an easier way to place shapes. Like I'm going to show you the rotate and translate commands, and it might help you a little bit. But right now, it's kind of tedious. Also with this code, check this out. You can have something that always happens. Like I want, this is my mouse pressed state, and this is my mouse not pressed state. But maybe I want there to be text on the screen always. This is always here. I better put comma, I don't know, I'll put 250 comma 250 so it's not in the way. Remember, these are the X and Y locations of where this text is. So that's always there no matter what, if I click or don't click. Here I'll add a little bit more code too. Like maybe if the mouse is pressed, I'll have a red background, and if the mouse is not pressed, I'll have a blue background. Now check this out. I've also got this gray background. This is going to overwrite that background. There, click, click. So you can have multiple commands in here. Again, with tidy code, do you see how this is kind of indented and stuff here? It doesn't really matter that it's indented, but it's kind of if you like your code to be nicely formatted, you can always go under tidy code and format it. And that really helps a lot. So one more thing, this is an area that people usually have lots of mistakes in. Whenever you're using mouseIsPressed, you always want, or whenever you're using an if statement, you want to make sure that you have a beginning and ending curly bracket there, and then this one also. And this one here is the matching one off here. I'll notice so many times I'll see something like this, and let's see what the error we get. We get unexpected end of input, and then people are like, well, I have enough curly brackets, and then they'll put another curly bracket here, and then this text code is just like hanging outside of the draw, so that's a problem. So all code needs to be inside of all these types of commands need to be inside of a function. So here is the entirety of this draw function. And you can have multiple if mouseIsPressed instances. Like maybe you want this text to always be here, but then you want something else. You can have a whole bunch of different areas with mouseIsPressed and a whole bunch of areas where you have just code, things that are always going to be there. You'll see that in some student work that I'm going to show in a minute. I wanted to show you guys the student survey so far. This is the first day of class or the second day of class. We've got 22 responses so far out of about 40 students. I want you guys to see that we've constantly at 63% or around 60% of people who have never coded before. Here's somebody who's programmed in R, Python, and C, so you're going to have a good time in this class. But the rest of you will too. When you think about programming, how do you feel? Only 22% are overwhelmed. That's pretty scary. Some people are excited and good. Thank you for being curious. Here's describes you most creatively right now, and only one person doesn't have a major concern about the course. Most people are worried about managing your time workload. So I'm in order to combat that, I'm going to try to release these videos way early for you in case you want to just like get everything out of the way. And then I know the holidays are coming up, so on the holidays you may not want to work. Or you may want to. You may have an excuse. Sorry, I've got a class. I got to go work on it. I got to go watch my teacher do a video. Anything else you'd like to tell us? Here, is this subject math heavy? I said no, and then I launched into a radians thing. So I'm really sorry about that. But it's not math heavy. I promise you. Even if it is, it's going to be easy because the computer does all the math. So you don't have to worry about math. I'm excited to start this course. Me too. Just nervous, but if you stay on top of the videos, absolutely. Feel like this class would be hard for me because I never did coding. I hope to hear, wow, it wasn't that hard at the end of this from you. Been a minute since I programmed, intrigued by this course, and a bunch of NAs. All right. If you are one of the 60% of people who have never coded before, an easy way to start this program will be to make an on program and an off program, because the P5JS programs are free, right? So you can make as many of them as you want. So here I have an off avatar. When I run it, that's off. And here's my on avatar. When I run it, it's like one of those OB dolls, right? When I click on it, I'm gonna expect it to do that. It's gonna look like that. And my off, all of this code, starting maybe from the background to this, to the mouth here, that's all my code for that draws that stuff, right? The rest of this just writes the mouse location to the screen, and that's some other stuff. So these are all my shapes. I'm going to want all of that to end up inside this, right? Like in here, and then I'm going to want my on to all be in here and my off to all be in there. There's so much code there, it might get really confusing. So I'm going to show you a cool way to do this, and that is we are going to name our own function and call them. So the way to name your own function, we have functions set up. We can make our own function. Maybe I want all this stuff. So this is what makes all of that face here. I'm going to take all of that out. I'm doing a Command or Control X to cut it all. And do you guys see now we've got three functions: function setup, function draw, and function mouse released. I'm going to make my own function down here. Function, what was this? Off avatar. And then in order to do this, you need to have parenthesis there. All of them have parentheses, and then you need a beginning and ending curly bracket, and then you can paste all of your code inside there. So that's all up to the mouth. I didn't put I didn't put this right mouse location to the screen. I didn't need to do that. But so now all of my avatar code is inside this function. And in order to call it, it's all in here. It's not going to automatically run like the rest of these functions. I'm going to have to do I'm going to have to call it. So to call it, I just write its name. Off avatar. And I have to spell it exactly right. I have to spell it exactly this way with the parenthesis. So now it's the same thing. It looks the exact same, but I've got my function, all my function code here, and then I've got the name of it here. So here is some sample code that you can use for your avatar project. If you click on this, this is where you'll put your on avatar function. I don't know what you're going to call it. Maybe you'll call it on avatar. It's got to be one word. And then here maybe you'll call that off avatar. You'll have to type that in. And then at the end, like somewhere far down, not inside another function, you'll have to you'll copy your function on avatar and off avatar from your on and off avatars. So I'll have to find my off. So here's my off avatar. So I will copy this function here. The whole thing from the beginning to the ending curly bracket. I can copy it and I can paste it. Oh, there. Function off avatar. And the same with my on avatar. You actually may just make one function and then you can copy it. This is another way to do this too, is to copy it and then change your on to something else. Like I will change my background to orange or something. Whoops. On avatar, off avatar, and click. So that one's just changing the on and the off. Let's take a look at some other student code just from this past semester. This is pretty cool. Reckon was once a detective named Richard Newton. Remember that this avatar not only has to have a bunch of shapes, but it also has a backstory. And when I click on it, it's got a completely different backstory. I also see a bunch of random stars going in the background. And do you see the lights flickering here? Let's find out how this student did this. It's so cool looking, isn't it? Look at that. Look at how it's flickering. How did he do that? It took him about 4.5 hours. This is something else I've asked you guys to do to keep track of how long it takes you to do this. And I'm not gonna grade how long it takes you. It's good for you to know. I'll talk about that later. So you can see here. There's an if mouse is pressed, then we've got a dark blue night, and then he's drawing some stars. There's his own function. Otherwise, there's a different background. Then he's got another if mouse is pressed, and then here this rectangle's always going to be here because it's not inside the mouse is pressed or else here. And then we've got more stuff here. You can put your code into a bunch of different mouse is pressed, or you could have just one. This is his own function, draw stars. There's some begin shapes too, so this is some really advanced stuff here. And then I wanted to talk one more thing about this random command. This is what's drawing the flames. So you remember our fill command? Remember that our fill command can take, I'm just drawing on here, remember our fill command could take 3 different numbers, right? And if we do fill 255, 0, 0, that's all the red light, that's all the green light in the computer screen, and that's all the blue light. So this is going to make reds. But what this student is doing is instead of putting it all the way to 255, if you use random with 255, it's going to be a random number. It's going to turn out to be different each time. Random number between 0 and 255. Isn't that cool? So it's going to be a random number of reds and a random number of greens and then no blues. So that's how he's getting that flickering. So random is an awesome tool for this background. So it says here how we've got background just this one gray. If I wrote instead of that, if I wrote random 255 there, we're going to get a flashing background between 255. It's going to go from 0 to 255. If I wanted to only go from 200 to 255 to make it a little less flickery, I'd get that. And then if I want, let's say I want random blues, right? So 0 reds, 0 greens, and a random number of blues, maybe between 100 and 125. That might look kind of cool. So that means to pick a random number, computer, between 100 and 125, but do it 60 times a second. So it's kind of flickery. You can't really see it. I'll make it a little bit more pronounced. Now it's going to be a lot more pronounced, you see? If I make a rectangle and I hard code it at 100, 100, and I make it this big and that tall, if I instead put random, this is going to be the width, right? If I put random 80, 100 there, and remember random's got to have a parenthesis there. Now it's going to be it's going to be shaking like that. And remember, it's always drawing at its top left-hand corner here at 100, 100. So if I put rectMode, like we saw earlier, center, it's going to be drawing it from its center, and now it's going to be shaking like that. So this is another good use for rectMode center. So that's the random command. Here's some more code. Let's polar bear. Now this one still has the X and Y printing out on in that text command. I would want that taken out. Please comment that code out because that will make me irritated. It looks unfinished. Polar bear. And then when I click on it, wow, polar bearer. So that's cool. Anything with martial arts always gets me very excited. When I click on it, yeah, the text is still there. So to take that text out, it would be right here, I think. Oh, yeah, this code right here, mouse X and mouse Y. You would just want to comment that out, and then rerun it. And now that's gone, so that's nice. But again, let's take a look at this code. Here's mouse is pressed. We've got a background, and then we've got a whole bunch of different commands, and there's rotate commands in here. I'm going to talk about those later. And then this is the unpressed state. So here's fill black with a couple of this is commented really nicely. And there's a rectangle here. Do you see take a look at these rectangles. So there's more than 4 parameters in here. That fifth one is rounded. It rounds the radius of the corners. So that's kind of cool, right? Now let's take a look at the snout. If I take this extra parameter out here, look at what the snout looked like before. You see its rounded edges, and then if I do this, now it's not rounded anymore. So that's kind of neat. The rectangle command, if you look on the if you look in the reference, you'll see that it can take 5 parameters. It can actually take 8 parameters. You can decide what the radius is of each of the corners that you want to use. This is the sturgeon again, and we've got lots of triangles on this one. Lots of triangles. In fact, those are all triangles all put together, so you can't really tell. It looks really neat. It looks like a giant crazy shape. Really cool. Mr. Slime is going to melt in the sun. What can we do? Will clicking save him? I'm going to click. That definitely saved him, but you can guess to make him all wiggly like that, there's definitely got to be some random commands. So let's take a look and see. When I clicked, yeah, look at here. So there's rectangle with the width over 2. I'll have to explain what that is in a second. So random, there's random between -4 and 4 there. That gets that really cool effect, and other parts of him are not shaking. So here are some mode commands. There's textAlign, rectMode, image mode, angle mode. We even talked about angle mode in an earlier video. If you watched the extra help video, you got to see angle mode happen. Normally, if we do rotations, the default is in radians, but if we write angle mode degrees, then we can write them in degrees. I'm going to just talk about textAlign and rectMode right now. If I draw text, hello world, and then I want to put that right in the center, so 200, 200. If I do that, let's see what happens. I'll expect to see that right in the center here. So it's totally not. Also, I'm going to make it bigger. Text size. I know that there's a text size command. I'll make it 28 pixels big. Yeah, that is, how come it's not in the center? It's not in the center because, again, just like rectangles, the text is being drawn from its top left-hand corner. So at 200, 200, it's drawing it there. That's what's going on. So if I want this text to be placed at 200 and 200, from its center, I got to use this textAlign command. And I'm putting it up here because you probably, once you want textAlign, all your textAlign center, you probably always want it centered. So you can put it up here where it only happens once. Now it's centered. So also, if I wanted to put a rectangle around it, boy, I better not put it here, right? Because a rectangle will go on top of it. So I'll put it right here, rect. 200, 200, and then I'll make it kind of wide. I'll make it 300 wide, and I'll make it 100 tall. So again, that's at 200, 200, but it's drawing it from its top left-hand corner. If I want its center to be placed at 200, 200, I got to use rectMode center. So you may want to just always have those two in there. And then there's also a textAlign middle too. There's a way to align this. You see it's aligned from its baseline right now. That's the default. So there's another text. Let's find out how to P5 textAlign. Yeah. So there's even a horizontal align and a vertical align. If I use textAlign and the first parameter needs to be either left, center, or right, so that's what I had. I had center, but I can even put a second parameter that looks like it's optional there, and I could put top, bottom, center, or baseline. So maybe I'll put center there too, right? Center, center, center. Watch this change. Now it's right in the center. So these align commands are pretty cool. And then when we look at the rotate command, for the arc, the last couple of parameters in the arc command were the beginning and ending of the arc, and it was in radians. You saw the word pi, and that got all mathy. But like, it'd be easier to write them in degrees, right? So that's what we did in the help video. I put up here angle mode degrees, and then we were able to write it in degrees. So we'll be going over that in the next video. Let me also talk about this kind of concept of width over 2, height over 2. That's an easy way of putting something right in the center of the screen. If I write print width, you see how width turns pink? Width is always going to look up here and get that number that's in the create canvas. So if I print that, again, I'm going to print it to the screen here. It's going to put 400. It's doing it 60 times a second. That's why you're seeing this number here. And if I put height, same thing, it's going to say 400 because it's getting it from there. So that's kind of cool, right? So the thing is that if I decide that I want hello world in the center of the screen, text hello world, or some kind of a rectangle or something in the center of the screen, instead of writing 200 comma 200 and doing this math myself, since I want it right in the center of the screen, I could say width over 2, and here I could say height divided by 2, height divided by 2. And so that'll put it, oh, it's not in the center of the screen because I forgot the textAlign command. But so that width over 2, height over 2, really quick way of getting to the center of the screen. And then if I decide to change this, oh no, I want to change it to 800, it'll still be in the center of the screen because it's going to always use what the width is, what I've changed to create canvas to. So it's kind of a neat way to just always get stuff in the center of the screen. You can even do width divided by 3 if you want it, or width divided by 4, but usually I've found myself using this a lot. Are you already a coder and you're looking for more challenges? Here's what you can do. You can do any of this stuff. If you do this stuff, and I know, some of you are kind of half coders or something like that, and so you're going to want a vibe code where you use AI. You can, because I guess that would be fun, to help you and stuff like that. But please write where you used AI. Please be able to explain how it works. You can ask the AI to explain it to you too. It does a pretty good job of that. And if you use AI, send 2 programs for me when you turn this in. Just put one that didn't use AI, and do one that did AI. So it's the end of day 3. Your goal for today should be to get this interactivity working and start finishing all your shapes. So maybe you'll have your on avatar and your off avatar kind of half done but not completely done, and you can be working on them in the separate programs, and then you can copy them over again. But it's nice to kind of have the interactivity working because you feel like really excited that you've even got that part of the code working. All right, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching this whole video. I may send another poll too because it's kind of fun to see how everybody's answering. Please stay on top of stuff, and please text me with any questions that you have. Email me. I feel weird that I have this asynchronous class. I don't know any of you guys, but I love you all, and I hope you have a good Sunday. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.